Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, like button, subscribe button. You know the deal. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always, always, always much appreciated when you do tune into the show. So today is Friday. That means predictions and keys to the game. There are three keys to the game, but I'm going to give you a fourth and start off with this one. It's all about Carson Wentz. Before I get there, let's get to the injuries because it's a big deal, I think, for this game. Defensive end Casey Toohill and defensive tackle Daniel Wise both ruled out for the game already on Friday. Toohill with the concussion, Wise with the high ankle sprain. Neither one is a big surprise. The other addition to the list was linebacker David Mayo is now questionable with an ankle injury. Defensive end James Smith-Williams also questionable with an abdomen injury. Smith-Williams felt confident on Thursday that he'd be able to go. We'll see. They always feel confident early in the week. We'll see what happens on Sunday. My guess is probably a game time decision, but that would be, they need to have him in there considering they're now thin along the defensive line. That's going to be a problem spot on Sunday. So let's get to, a couple more things. Cam Curl, he will play. That's not a surprise either, given what we've known all week, but he's not even on the injury list. He's going to play. Cole Turner, the tight end, for people who have been wondering about him and asking about him, where is he, when's he going to play? Keep this in mind. They use three tight ends and they keep three tight ends active in a game. So you obviously got Logan Thomas and John Bates. With a third tight end right now is Armani Rogers, and he's playing well, especially on special teams. That's a big key. If you're going to be the third tight end, you better do well there. He is. That's probably why he's going to stay active and why Cole Turner may stay inactive for the foreseeable future and this allows Turner to get caught back up with the offense. Right now, they're okay. They are clearly okay without him because you got Thomas, who is improving, getting back from the ACL, and Bates, who's very solid and excellent blocker. And if they need to have a third tight end, you can put Rogers in there. I think as Turner gets more acclimated to the offense, I think that will help him. It was a big deal for him missing as much time as he did during the summer. So let's get for a minute or so on Carson Wentz. And obviously, this is going to be a big game for him. He has talked about this game with teammates. He talked about it during the summer with them when he'd just be out golfing or whatever. And he would tell them, like, he's a highly competitive guy, so he doesn't want to put extra significance on this one. Those were just private conversations, not just what he says publicly. But they also know what happened there. He also, he and they are well aware of what this game means. And every player, anybody who's ever gone against someone that a place they came from is going to have a little extra juice. And I think he's even told some teammates that, yeah, he'd have a little extra oomph for this one. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he's only human. So, but what he can't do is then take that and try and win the game himself. He needs to do what he's done the first two games and make good decisions. Yeah, there have been a couple picks. That's going to happen. There's also been 7 touchdown passes, and the picks result from not as much bad decisions as it was maybe a late throw, an unlucky situation where Trayvon Walker makes an unbelievable pick. And yes, Wentz could have probably handled it a little bit better, but give Walker a lot of credit on that one. And then the overthrow to Thomas, missed it by a little bit, but it was an overthrow, and that's something he's had an issue with. But again, it wasn't a bad decision. Wentz has made good decisions since he's been here, and he needs to continue doing that on Sunday and let the talent around him be the guide. Let them win the game for him, or let them move the ball on offense with those receivers. He doesn't have to force it. There have been times where I know the knock is that he holds the ball too long. And there are other times where I've seen it where if he had held the ball a little bit longer, then this in-breaking route to Jahan Dotson is open. But this happened last week. Instead, he threw the ball down to a check down to Antonio Gibson, gets 8 to 10 yards, could have had 15 to 20 with Dotson, but it was more about he didn't want to force it in there. So he didn't, and he picks up yards anyway. So he needs to continue doing that. Don't make it personal. Make it about the talent around you, and you'll be okay. Clearly, the Eagle fans in attendance are going to be going for him. Just kind of funny because they've got a good quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Things are rolling for them. I don't know. It's kind of, well, I guess I understand, but it's still a little bit weird that they're going to focus so much on beating Wentz as much as it is just get to your team being 3-0. But you know what? That's fandom. That's life. Anyway, let's move on to the other keys of the game. Number one, be disciplined. If you're not disciplined against Jalen Hurts, he's going to hurt you. And that it starts with the eyes. It also is about doing your job. So if your eyes need to be here, they better be there, because if not, he's going to fool you. The Eagles do a good job of creating situations for him and creating passing lanes for him with the motion of the play, and also about who you're threatening with, putting Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and running some kind of pattern off that, or with A.J. Brown. And that's where they can be dangerous, because your eyes get caught over here and then they're going to slide right back here to somebody else. They're dangerous that way. But it's also on the zone read and the run pass options that they do with that as well. That's where Hurts is dangerous. It's not just zone read keep, or then then throw the ball. They've done that as well. So if your job is to take the dive guy, you take the dive guy. If your job is to take the quarterback, you take the quarterback. That's always a key. It's a big key in this one. But I'm not just talking about those kind of situations as much as I am talking about the pass rush, because the pass rush has to be disciplined. I'm going to give you a couple plays that happened here last year against Hurts, but also in the Vikings game Monday night, where it's a prime example of what happens when you are and when you're not disciplined with the pass rush. On the first one, we resulted in a 16-yard pass completion because the Vikings allowed a huge gap to open up on their left side. What happened was the left defensive end rushes to 10 yards depth, way too far. The right end rushes to 7 to 8 yards depth, proper depth. Then because of that, because the left end rushed so high, when the right end pushes Hurts, he pushes him right up into the opening, steps up, gets a completion, boom, 16 yards. But on the next play, the Vikings get a sack, 4-man rush, but the key was the disciplined rush. Both ends that time rushed to 7 to 8 yards depth. The same thing happened on the right end. He pinches him up. The left end is there. Hurts has to now step up, and the right end finishes the play with the sack. But it all stems from being disciplined with your pass lanes, with your rush, not trying to do too much. Sometimes I saw some Vikings pass rushers doing some spin moves, and you wouldn't have a guy replace them. That's just suicide against a guy like Hurts. He's going to find that opening. You can't do that. Last year, this team did an okay job at sometimes doing it. But there were a couple plays. I want to point this out. One time is Bunmi Rotimi, one time rushes to 10 yards depth. Again, too far. Opens up a spot right, and Hurts runs right up inside of him, gets about 7 yards on a run. Not a huge play, but 7 yards on a 2nd and 13 was, it set up a third and manageable. Another time in the red zone, the Washington they dropped Rotimi into coverage. So that means the tackle now has to slide out to the outside when he rushes. Well, he didn't do that. So then Hurts gets pushed up to that side, rolls outside, hits Goedert for 18 yards in the red zone inside the 5, setting up an easy touchdown. But it was all set up because of a lack of discipline on the pass rush and not doing your job. You have to do that in this game if you want to slow down Jalen Hurts. And they have to work together. When I think they've been better at that, I think with John Allen and Daron Payne, especially in Montez Sweat. But this is where losing that defensive line depth is going to take a hit, because now you're going to be putting in some guys that haven't played as much and their familiarity with the guys around them, et cetera. You're going to need Shaka Toney to probably play. Where they miss with Tuhill is that he's a more athletic defensive end than a James Smith-Williams, for example. When you're facing a guy like Hurts, you need that. And Tuhill has the size. Shaka Toney has the athleticism, but he doesn't have the size to play against the run. He's a pass rusher. You can do some things with him in those situations that help, and I think they're going to need that on Sunday. All right, number 2, challenge the corners. You need to challenge Darius Slay and James Bradberry. And Slay is an excellent, excellent corner, and Bradberry has been a good corner. But Slay is excellent. When you talk to guys today, he's an above-average corner. He's not Jalen Ramsey, but he's very, very good. But he's coming off a great game as well. And it's funny with the Eagles, the first game against the Lions, they seemed to play a lot more off coverage last week, maybe a little bit more aggressive. I don't know what they're going to get this week. I think we can see probably a mix of that. I think they're probably going to want to be more aggressive against Wentz, not because it's a former teammate, but because they feel like that may be a way to hurt him. Anyway, with Slay, let's look at the first game last year when Washington played up in Philly, and it was Garrett Gilbert starting at quarterback. On the first drive of the game, if you remember, Gilbert hits Terry McLaurin with a 49-yard pass at Slay. You need to challenge him early down the field. If you can get a big play, that's obviously what you want because it does set up a better night. The thing was, there's a couple things with Slay that make him outstanding. One, his feet at the line. When he's in press, he does a really good job of not opening up too early, and that allows him to maintain advantage and to cover the guys. So a lot of times you see corners will open up too soon. They open their hips, and you're going to go whichever side, whichever he's open up, the receiver is going to take advantage of that. He doesn't open up too soon. That's an advantage for him. The other thing with him is he's very, very smart. You can tell he studies a lot of film because of how he plays. And what receivers will say is that they know he eliminates certain routes before the snap because of that film study, based on split, based on alignment, etc. So he's really able to do that. So test that a little bit. There are times like when I watched that play again with McLaurin, I think he thought he was going to have an outbreaking route. And that's because he probably thinking he's not going deep, not with Gilbert here, but he did. He challenged him out the field. Clearly with Wentz, you're going to expect something down the field. So he may be more paying attention to that. However, you need to challenge him with that. Very good corner. McLaurin's had some success with him. Challenge. Then the other one is with Bradbury. Bradbury is not a fast corner. So what you need to do with him, and you saw this in the Detroit game in the opener, test him on those shallow crossers. Use that speed across the field to get him. That's where I think you can get him more. And certainly this team has the speed to do it at receiver, not just with McLaurin, but Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson. They have the ability to do that. I think this is an offense that can move the ball on Sunday, and I think they can have some really good success and make this an interesting game. But if you're going to run in the corners, or if you're going to challenge the corners, you need to do it this way. And I think that would be good for them. And obviously, you want to run the ball. You want to listen. Ball control is great in any game where you have to face an explosive offense. Ball control is only good, though, if you're finishing with touchdowns and not just field goals or just using clock, because both teams can score in a hurry. Eagles can do that. And so if you are going to go ball control, if you can do that, that's ideal. We know that. But you better finish with touchdowns against this team. And then the other thing with that, if you're doing that, and I know this is like a bunch of keys rolled into one, but if you can get a lead on this team, then it allows you to play that way. And then it also forces Hurts to play from behind. And now they did it twice last year against Washington, but this is a difficult team to play against when you're coming from behind because of the Eagles' ability to control the ball on the ground, not just with Hurts, but with Miles Sanders, and the action off of Hurts' ability to run makes it difficult. So there you go. Last one, mix it up. You got to mix it up. And I'm talking about defensively, mixing up the coverages. That means playing some man. That means playing a lot of switching up your zones. That means being able to disguise different packages. I'm going to give you a couple stats here. When Jalen Hurts faced a 4-man rush against Washington last year, he completed 27 of 35 passes for 350 yards. When it was a 5-man rush or more, 10 of 17 for $160 with 2 sacks. Now, clearly there's some big plays in there that he could make when it was on a more aggressive rush, but also they forced him into more mistakes, whether sacks or more incompletions. So keep that in mind. They know that playing man against Hurts can be dangerous because of his ability to run, but they know you have to do it on occasion. So look for that. One of the things they did well in that second meeting was disguising coverages. And I think getting Cam Curl back here is a key. Very smart player, but you saw that last year. You could see Curl and McCain doing a really good job disguising. Is it cover 2, cover 3, single high? What was it? And their ability to do it last second, I think, was a good job. That's where I brought up the play with Rotimi earlier in this prediction stuff, or in the keys. On that play, they did a nice job of causing Hurts to hesitate because of the last second switch after the snap. But the rush did not hold up its end, and it gave Hurts the out. But the coverage in the secondary did its job with how they disguise things. And by the way, with the coverage, you got to get better games from William Jackson and Kendall Fuller. You cannot give up these big plays, and you need to have guys doing what they need to do. But it does have a big effect having Curl back, and you get a more true 3 safety look that they like. It's harder to get that when he's not in there, but he's a bigger safety that you can put in the box. He's smart. He's played there, and with he and Derek Forrest are slightly interchangeable in some ways. So when the 3 of them are in the field together, it gives you the ability to disguise better because who's going to be doing what? If it's Percy Butler and Forrest, they kind of know what's probably going to happen. But with Forrest and Curl and McCain, there's a little bit more guesswork for a quarterback. So that's where it's going to be a big, big help to have him back. That's it. Those are my keys to the game. Now, time for a prediction. So I do like the way Washington, I think, has responded throughout the week. This does seem to be a relaxed bunch. This is not a team that's panicking because they lost one game in Detroit. Under Ron Rivera, they have been a resilient team. I think that will continue. But my concern is, has this defense shown they can stop an offense like this? I don't think it has. And then you're taking away some of the defensive line depth. So I think it's going to be difficult. I do think this offense can hang, and at least hang for a while. I do have Philadelphia winning 31-26. I do think it'll be a fun game. This is always kind of a weird rivalry. It wouldn't shock me if Washington wins because this is the NFL and this offense is a good offense. And all it takes is look at those two games last year. They had a chance to win both of them. They should have won the second game here, and they had a chance in the first one because they created some early turnovers. That's going to be a key as well. This team needs to create turnovers, and they haven't done it. But if they do that Sunday, then yeah, of course they can win. And then it would get this team back in a position where I think fans would be a little bit more excited than they were after Sunday. So there you go. That's it for me. I'll be back after the game to discuss what happened in the Eagles-Commanders game. And then also don't forget to check out Between the Hashes, my son Matthew's college football preview for the weekend. Always good stuff from Matthew. Check that out, Between the Hashes on the Empire Media Network. I will talk to you after the game, so talk to you next time.